Hello, and welcome to the Table Football Podcast, a podcast set up to discuss both football and Round Table. Round Table and Ladies Circle are national organisations which aim to raise money for local charities, support their local communities, and promote lifelong friendships which span across towns, counties, and nations. If you are between the ages of 18 and 45, are looking to do more with your spare time, enhance your social life, and do some positive things for your local community, Round Table and Ladies Circle are always looking for new members. Visit our website at www.roundtable.co.uk for more information. Hello, welcome everyone to the Table Football Podcast, episode 4. We're now in 2024. It's been probably about 6 weeks since our last recording. January, we had a dry January and no recordings in January because we, as we talked about earlier, life got away from us a bit. But it's been an interesting January for football. Bit of a mixed one for Arsenal fans. But anyway, we'll come on to that in a bit. So we've got there's 4 of us here today. There's myself, Shepp, as usual, and my usual partner in crime, Tris. How are you doing, Tris?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
I'm good.
Euphoric after last night's victory?
I'm very happy, yeah.
I expect to see you running around celebrating with euphoria.
I've been drinking the salty tears of Jamie Carragher all day. It's yeah. Yeah, it was a good game. It was a good game if you're an Arsenal fan, and probably a good game if you're a Liverpool fan in terms of interest. I don't know how good a game it was for you. I mean, it was carnage. I did
great game if you're an Everton fan.
Well, it was not a game for defenders, was it? It's basically a sort of what not to do as a centre back. Yeah. So speaking of centre backs, we have our own. I want to say wannabe centre back. He was a centre back at one point. But he's our own bald Paolo Maldini. Welcome, Ed.
I'm going to take that every day of the week. Yeah, welcome. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I would have not made any of those mistakes that were on display last night. I've never managed to handball it into my own goal, and also I'd have just taken the keeper out and the centre forward out, and you would have never got Martinelli's goal happening in a million years. And as we were discussing on the text last night, hoofball would have been put into action, and that ball would have been in the stands. So yeah, you know. What the hell does Virgil van Dijk know?
Yeah. Well, he took responsibility for it anyway, didn't he? So that's the most important thing. And our fourth and final guest is James from Penistone Round Table. Welcome, James. I see you got sporting a lovely number there.
Yeah, so you might have guessed I'm a Norwich City fan from Penistone Round Table. It's quite a collection of us in Penistone. I know at least 3 other people that support Norwich in Penistone. And they're not from Norwich either. One's from Bradford. Just decided to pick a team in the 90s and went with Norwich. So, yeah, that's a bit random. But, yeah, so there's a few of us about. I have to fight to get Norwich put on the telly in the local club because normally they want to watch horse racing instead of red-hot championship action. You know. It is what it is. It's great being a Norwich fan because we get promoted every now and again and we're rubbish. Then we go back down and we're pretty good in the Championship. Proper yo-yo team, you know. But Championship's an excellent league. Really is a good league. It's probably one of the most competitive in the world, isn't it? It's got to be.
You're probably right. To be fair.
Yeah. Anyone. It doesn't matter who you're playing. Anyone can seem to beat anyone. Obviously, we've got Leicester and Southampton this year, and unfortunately, Ipswich are doing well, but now they're finding their place again, back in mid-table. Eventually, hopefully. The thought of Ipswich going up to the Premier League, although it would have been funny, because they have got a bit of money behind them, I suppose. Ipswich, they might have spent some money, unlike Norwich, just seems to do things on a shoestring. Delia brings out a new book, and we can sign an average French second division striker or something like that.
Let's be having you.
Let's be having you. Yeah, we've got American investment on the way, so watch this space. Big things coming to Norwich. Yeah, we're going to get some NFL dollars sent our way, I think.
It's always with the American investment, isn't it? That's the way. I feel like it's like moderately more reputable than Middle East investment.
Yeah.
Probably, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think as well for Norwich, it has one of those. It has like a traditional but attractive looking ground. You know, it's one of those grounds where I used to work in Norwich a fair bit, and I never managed to time it when there was actually a game on. But when I'd go for a run, I'd always go around by the football stadium on the way back, and it's just one of those you look at it and go, yeah, there's something about it that it just seems, you know, tidy, compact, but just has a good look about it. So yeah, I fancy Norwich. I fancy Carrow Road. There you go. I've got a man crush Carrow Road.
It's a good game. It's a good stadium, and there was it's got the hotel in the corner now, and there's been episodes where an away fan has been kicked out of the ground, and he's basically gone to his hotel room, and then like he's like taking his top off and flashing his belly out of a hotel room window, and the camera's picked him up. I think it was Cardiff now. I think it was Cardiff or something like that. Yeah, there's a big fella in the hotel just like giving it large after he's been kicked out. Like,
wait, is it one of those ones that has like you can look onto the pitch from the hotel? Oh, brilliant!
Yeah,
they did not think that through, did they?
No. The only time I've stayed in one of those rooms because you pay a premium for them, but there was no game on, and there was just those, you know, the lights they put on the pitch at night to keep it growing, keep the grass growing and stuff like that. So that was as exciting as it got, watching those things move around the grass. So, yeah.
Oh, well, very good. Right, we'll come back on to Norwich in a bit because we're going to ask some questions about some of your memories and things like that. So we will whip round the other tops being what we'll do. Ed next. Ed, you were in a different one to last time. Okay.
Yeah, I seem to. I can't quite remember which one I wore last time.
I can't remember which one you were.
I know I had this one out. Yeah, this was one of my kind of all-time faves from the last time we appeared in the European Cup final. And then, as I said in the background, was the recent purchase, which is the '96 away kit, famously known as the Bumblebee kit, that caused sort of quite a stir, not just in Scotland but across the whole UK at the time. And you know, now when you look at it, there's been far wackier and more controversial kits, and particularly when I think back to some of the goalkeepers' kits of the 90s or something, but this was like one of the most talked about and divisive kits ever, because I don't think the camera does it justice. But yeah, it's high-vis yellow and black, isn't it? Maybe it's because nowadays we're all used to like everyone wears high-vis no matter what you're doing, you know, and you know, we just get that's just like normalized, whereas back then it wasn't. But yeah, that's the latest addition to the collection.
It's the same colours as the Dortmund home shirt, isn't it? Basically,
yeah. But I suppose the Dortmund's slightly more yellowy, isn't it? Whereas this is very much more. It's how I could describe it is the kind of tops we wear at Bonfire. It's pretty much like that sort of green yellow sort of thing.
Are we putting the guy in that? I know. Wait, that would be really controversial, actually, wouldn't it? Let's take a step back from that.
No, you are not using any of my questions. The guy on that fire.
Yeah,
I do know a guy. I do know a guy who's a Rangers fan. So I mean, we could by all means use his tops. There we go. That's fine.
That'd be a really interesting one to explain to people how we're a non-sectarian organisation. But we burnt a Rangers shirt.
I don't know.
You could have that top shirt I once bought just to wind you up, Shepp.
There is a picture of me in a Tottenham shirt that does the rounds every now and then from my stag do. I got absolutely ruined and made to wear this thing, and it's horrendous because, well, A, it was a Tottenham shirt, and B, it was like a small as well, so it barely fit. It was like the least flattering thing, and we can do that. That's fine. We can burn a Tottenham shirt. That's no problem. Right. Anyway, we'll move on. Tris, what year is that one?
So this one I'm actually wearing is our luminous kind of yellow, green, whatever colour it is. It's one of the only 2 years that we've actually had this sort of colour shirt for this is actually the third shirt from the 08-09 season. I actually quite like it, actually. I still play football in this now and again. It saves me having to wear one of those hideous bibs occasionally. And behind me, we have the... so this one is the 2019... In fact, actually, no, it's the 2020-21 season. So in answer to your question, who is going to sponsor football teams in the future when you can't have anything like betting or, like gambling or any of that type of stuff? Kazoo. There we go. A really shit car manufacturing company who sponsored 2 teams in the same season. And this one is the 13-14 season. So when Lukaku was at Everton, when we actually finally had a striker that could actually put the ball in the back of the net. So yeah, that was when we had Nike for a few seasons. So as you may notice, I've gone a little bit yellow in honor of Mr. Edwards coming on with his Norwich themed canary sort of thing going off. And he turned up in a Canary's Hawaiian shirt. Very unexpected, but
yeah, so
I like it.
You guys have all seen me and the shape I am. I'm not built for a football shirt. So I don't think I have owned one. I owned a Norwich kit when I was a kid. But yeah, I'm not currently built for a football top.
I think we'd call it classic Sunday League centre back physique.
Yeah. You can imagine going off at half time and having a pint and a fag. That's the sort of build I go for. So yeah, I settled for an official merchandise Hawaiian shirt, which is a horrendous material. And if you burnt this, it would glow like a Bunsen burner. It's got that sort of feeling to it. So
I feel, James, you do yourself an injustice, really, in the sense that I'm not built for football shirts. Have you seen some of the people that put themselves in football shirts on the stadiums around the country?
Oh, I know. I know the funny thing is, I've never played football other than a kickabout at school either, because I was a rugby player. So I'm probably a terrible person to be on this podcast. However, I am a Norwich fan, so that's why I'm here.
We won't talk about playing the game then. That's fine.
Yeah. I think an injustice as well in the fact that he is literally the only Norwich fan to ever buy that shirt.
I think you might be right.
I feel like
it's always on sale in the club shop for the past 10 years.
Yeah, you probably got away with it, James. I reckon about 20 years ago, because like this shirt is this is the 98 one, and they just made them baggy. Like all the 90s shirts are baggy. Like it was a sort of mid noughties where all of a sudden it became like the sort of skin tight anti-pull technology that came in, wasn't it?
But even rugby tops I own have gone that way as well. So they're quite tight. You can buy because they sell now, don't they? Football tops, I've noticed as well. They sell pro ones, which are like 120 quid, and then they sell like just normal ones, which are like 60 quid or something like that. So I guess the pro ones, they must have all the moisture wicking stuff on them and stuff, probably.
Yeah, it's the official technology, but also they're a bit more, I don't know, like not slim fit, but like they pinch in places.
Yeah. I remember the old baggy shirts from like the 90s. I remember Darren Huckabee running around like playing for Norwich, and it looked like he had a parachute behind him, like huge, big old baggy shirts. Yeah,
I've got a Billericay Town one that I wear. It's a proper, non-league old school football shirt, and every now and then back in the day when I used to actually play football, I haven't played in about 8 months now. Used to just get it out and play a bit of indoor football, and every single time within about 5 minutes I was like, I now remember why I never wear this shirt, because it literally is like it's the hottest thing in the world. It's like I don't know, material just not breathable at all.
They're absolutely terrible. I have a 2002 World Cup Poland jersey, and I did the same Shepp one night. I was like, oh, because I always have to play on a red team on a Tuesday night, which is most annoying because I never get to be able to wear my own team's colours ever. So I thought, oh, one time I'll just get the old Poland jersey out. And about 15 minutes in, I was like, this is horrendous. The thing wasn't red anymore. It was kind of like a dark blood colour because of the amount of sweat that was like, there's no breathability in them at all. Absolutely nothing.
I've just finished. So I've got this is the '98 Arsenal shirt. I've got the legend's name on the back as well. Oh, you can't. I didn't realise you'd done that. And then the shirts behind are that way. It's mirrored. This is not going to be anything for people listening to this audio. So it's a bit of a paying homage to Beckham in that I think the LA Galaxy one is the shirt from when he moved over to the US, and then it's the Inter Miami current away. I think it's their away shirt, not their third shirt. Anyway, it's a lot nicer than the one that's got the colours reversed. So yeah, that's the Inter Miami away shirt. So those are the shirts. We've talked about them. That brings us on to have a quick chat about so some people might know that James is currently campaigning to gain everyone's vote to become the international relations officer. So I thought we'd have a little bit of a chat about that and about I guess James, about what does the role actually entail, and I'll say, why should people vote for you? But we were talking about that before, about your tagline, so I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, so the IRO, as it's generally known, the International Relations Officer, basically represents RTBI abroad at meetings such as the Central European Sailors meeting, the half-year world meeting, and the full world meeting. Basically, they have meetings, a bit like your sort of AGM style meetings, and the IRO sits with the chairman, the national president. Obviously, Bushy as is at the minute. Steve Eccles next year, and basically and represents RTBI in those meetings. So they make decisions on sort of budgets and sort of direction of the international table or the regional table at the CETM meetings, and make sure we've got a voice around the table. And then obviously we have a vote as well on stuff. So it's part of that really. And then that's the official part of the role. I guess the unofficial part of the role is actually just being a representative of RTBI in the UK as well. So obviously we've got a lot of people that visit the UK, particularly because obviously we're the birthplace of Round Table, if you like, Norwich, in fact. So it's putting people in touch with tables that they're perhaps near, or I think there's a lot in London. Adam Fitt, who does it at the minute, gets a lot of people because he's London based, so he takes a lot of people round. It's like the Round Table pub down in London, and obviously they're not too far to get across to Norwich. Some people want to go and see Marchese House in Birmingham because there's a bit of a museum there if you've never been. It's quite interesting. Some sort of interesting stuff there. And then the other thing is it's sort of promoting international tabling, really. I mean, I started doing it. Actually, I went to India with work in about 2013-14 and met up with some local Indian round tablers, and they actually had their Diwali social, which was absolutely bonkers. Sort of kids letting off fireworks in their hands, and adults drinking far too much whiskey and letting off fireworks from the back of their trousers, all that sort of stuff. So it was pretty mental. And it was you realise you go all the way across the world, and it's just lads like people in your own table, the same sort of mindset, get up to the same stupid pranks, have silly jokes with each other like we do. And then when I was area chair back in 2019, I went to my first world meeting, which was in Romania, a place called Brajov. It was absolutely unbelievable. I had such a good time. Bear in mind, I went on my own. I instantly had like 1,000 friends with me. It was like being on a stag do with like 1,000 people. It was just brilliant, and I really got a passion for it then. Sort of, I've done been to a couple of world meetings since, a couple of half-year meetings, and I just really want to encourage people to get out there and see the wider world. Really, obviously, you guys have been involved in area tabling. You know how much that can sort of broaden your horizons and take best practice back to your table. When you go international, it just, it's mind blowing, really, the stuff that tables get up to. Germany, for example, they like every year fill up lorries full of like presents and take them over to Eastern Europe and stuff, like their gift appeal stuff. It's just unbelievable what they get up to. In India, they build whole schools. So it's just, really, international tabling is brilliant. It's one of the best things I've done in table, if I'm honest. So yeah, that's sort of broadly why I want to do it.
And there is, am I right in thinking that, I'm sure I applied for something not that long ago. There is like a fund, isn't there? Because one of the things that sometimes we hear back from people is that I can't afford it, or it's not possible. But there is actually, RTBI does have a fund to fund a person every now and then to go on these things.
Yes, the IRO does hold a few pots of money that's come from different areas. 41 Club have one as well, that is for young tablers to go travelling. So that's something that definitely is part of my campaign, is about the cost, because I'm in quite a lucky position. It's just me and my wife. I'm a classic dinky, if you like. I haven't got kids or anything, so I haven't got. But a lot of like most tablers, it is money they're going to have to sort of justify spending to go abroad. And the events aren't cheap, I'm not going to lie. So like I'm going to Nepal at the end of this month, and it's like, the flights were 800 quid, and the event itself was another 800 quid, and that's expensive. And there was no like payment option, so I had to pay that in one go. Went straight on the credit card, as you can imagine. So I want to work with sort of the international board, really, to see if there's any, can we bring in some sort of payment options? Like this year, for the RTBI National Conference, they've put in this sort of like a payment plan, and the guys down in Norwich have done the direct debit for the National Sporting Weekend and stuff like that, just to make it a little bit easier. Because I think that's what puts a lot of people off, is the cost, to be honest.
Yeah, it's definitely something. It's something I'd always. So during lockdown, we made some really good friends with a guy from one of the German round tables, and we keep coming up with plans about how we're going to get over there. But it's like it's justifying the cost and the time, and you kind of think you sort of do these. Yeah. I feel like sometimes you do these things in incremental steps. So like if you're a local tabler, try and get involved in an area, and then once you've done that, try and get involved in national, and then if you're but then you don't have to do it that way. You can just jump in with both feet, and like you say, it's. I mean, I experienced this. I remember with NSW the first time I did it. I know it's not the same as going abroad, but it was a similar experience. I think I'd gone out, and the event I did, I was completely on my own, and then within about an hour, I was like, it doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter.
Exactly. Do you know what? It's a similar vibe to that. But Sporting Weekend in particular, it's got that real sort of fun vibe about it. That's kind of what like an international meeting's like. It's all about the camaraderie, and have a few drinks with some people you've only just met. You walk through a hotel lobby, you think, oh crikey, what am I going to do now? Next thing you know, you're having lunch with 6 Germans and drinking bottles of vodka when you shouldn't be. So it's good. It's brilliant for that. So it's just, really, really worthwhile, and probably the cheapest way to do it. I mean, I think Elland's quite a high number as well, isn't it? We don't have a numbers meet, because in Penistone, we've never been invited to the 10s or the 94s, and you're not going to find any 1094s around the world. But the tables that have numbers meets, I think that's quite a good way of sort of cheaper. Going abroad cheaper, because obviously you're home hosted a lot of the time. Basically, you'll have a number. So it's like, I know Donny do one, because they're table number 7, and there's obviously a lot of sevens around the world. And I think they're off to Sweden, I think, this year. I can't remember. I think it's Sweden or something like that. And it's great because they'll get home hosted, and there's like different events they can go to. Their families go, so all the kids get to know each other. It just sounds like a great event.
Yeah, it's something we have tried in Elland. We've been invited to the 65 group and the 58 one. But again, it's trying to, because even those carry a bit of a cost, don't they, as well? But unless you're hosting it, I guess, in which case it's in your country. I mean, I know that. So is it the European meeting that is in? It's quite close, isn't it?
Again,
this year, yeah. So if people are interested, that would be a good one to try and sign up.
Yeah, it's really good because a young lad in our table, Struan, who Tris knows, obviously, they're in a band together. He's going. I don't know whether he's asked you for the weekend off, Tris. I don't think you've got a gig, to be fair, but I think he won the travel bingo. So basically, the travel bingo is where different organisations will offer organisations a free ticket, and basically we reciprocate. So we'll give out a ticket to our AGM, our national conference, etc. And Tris won the bingo to go to Ghent. So I think I wasn't going to go, but when I heard he was going, I thought, I'll go for that. And then we're going to share the ferry costs, so we're going to get a ferry across. And I think there's another young lad in our table who's only been in table less than a year, and he wants to come along. So should be really good. Get people into it when they're really young, and you won't look back, I don't think.
Brilliant. Well, sounds good. As I say, if people have got questions, and who are the best people to contact? Is it best to contact the current IROs, or is there a link to on the website at the moment that has the details?
Just for general questions about travel.
Just about the bingo and things like that.
Yeah. So Adam does send emails out when the bingo is available. It's done for this year now. So the next one will be the new IRO. But yeah, so. Look out, keep an eye on your table email, wherever that goes to. It's normally in Tuesday table, or it'll get advertised as well. There is an IRO Facebook page for RTBI. So keep an eye on all that.
Brilliant. Well, that sounds like a plan. So if you haven't done that, give it a look, because it's probably worth it. I mean, if it's free to enter the bingo, so you don't lose anything by
I think last year as well there was one. The French had their national conference in, I think, is it New Caledonia? It's south of, it's near New Zealand basically. It was a French colony, and someone from RTBI actually won a ticket to that. So, the only trouble is it takes about 6 weeks to get there, and about $3,000. Whether they went or not, I'm not sure. But next year the Dutch have got theirs in. It's not St. Martin, but it's one of the Caribbean islands near St. Martin. Oh, Curacao. So if you fancy a trip to the Caribbean. The Dutch.
Are we going to look into this? Are we going to look into this at RTBI? Do we even own any islands out there still?
Well, I suggested the mess at RAF Mount Pleasant in the Falklands could be a good place for national conference.
Right, and on that note, we've strayed dangerously into territorial waters, literally.
Technically, ours, but yeah.
Oh, well, yes. Okay. So we're going to also have a chat with you, James, about Norwich then. So obviously you said you're a Norwich fan, and you talked about some of your experiences. I guess we've had people on here before, and they've talked a bit about why they became a fan and what their sort of earliest memories are. And so I don't know if you've got any. So what was the reason for you being a Norwich fan? Did you pull something out of a bucket, or were you a local lad?
No, so I was actually born in Aberdeen, another great club, but I wasn't there long enough to really. I left when I was about 1 or 2, and we moved to. My dad was in the oil industry, so we moved about wherever there was sort of black gold, if you like. And so we moved to Norfolk because he worked out of Great Yarmouth. And obviously, I grew up, and the only big team around that area is Norwich. So I just I sort of started supporting them. Probably in like the late 80s, sort of early 90s is when I started getting into it. And my dad used to take me every now and again when he wasn't away with work. We used to go to the odd game. Used to sit in the old. It's now the Gerald stand. It's like a brand new stand now. But back then it was a proper old like wooden stand, like horrible wooden seats and stuff. Freezing cold, muddy pitches, as you remember they used to be. My first memories seem to be, I think it was, we played like Southampton in the quarter-final of the FA Cup. We'd gone on a bit of a cup run. And I just remember it was like got a feeling it was like a Tuesday night replay or something stupid like that. And it was freezing cold. It was Southampton. I can't know who was playing for them, but they were absolutely filthy. They were like kicking players down and all sorts. I remember Robert Fleck playing for Norwich. And he was always my favourite player at the time. Old Flecky. I think is it his nephew that played for Sheffield United, Tris? You might know. Because there's a Fleck that played there.
Yeah.
Is it John Fleck? Is there a John Fleck?
John Fleck. Was he related or something? I think he must be related somehow. I'm sure someone told me that. Might have just made that up. But anyway, yeah, Fleck was a good. And then obviously we had the European run. And basically Norwich, I remember watching Norwich at school for some reason. I think we stayed late. I can't remember, but we had like a bit of a cinema room at school, and they put on the Inter Milan game, the second leg at the San Siro that we lost. Only just, we weren't appalling, but at that time Norwich were the only British team left in Europe, I believe.
So what year was that?
Was it 92, 92, 93? I don't remember. Our famous romp to the third round of the UEFA Cup. So. Yeah, Bayern Munich, Jeremy Goss on the volley. You speak to any Norwich fan, it'll eventually come round to Goss on the volley. That's sort of an half-empty Olympic Stadium in Munich. Bit of a shadow of what it is now, I suppose. But yeah, crazy times to be a Norwich fan. Mike Walker, yeah, was the manager at the time. Then we had like the young Chris Sutton. We then sold. He went for a British record transfer fee, didn't he, off to Blackburn, £5 million or something.
So I was going to ask actually. That was you. Were Norwich in the Prem in the first year it became a thing? Were you in it with Ipswich as well?
Were Ipswich in it? I think they might have been.
I've got a recollection that Ipswich were in it in '94.
Yeah, we were one of the initial teams, one of the inaugural teams, and I think we were about 8 points clear at Christmas at the top, and then it all went downhill. And obviously, Blackburn won the first one, didn't they? Was it?
Yeah, Blackburn. Yeah,
Man U were up there as well, and we came third, I think.
I mean, it happens.
Sorry,
yeah. Could speak from experience. It happens.
Yeah, it does.
8 points off at Christmas, and it all comes tumbling down.
Yeah. So
interesting though, in the first Premier League season, the biggest home win of any club in the season was Blackburn Rovers 7, Norwich City 1.
Yes. Yeah.
So that would have been the famous Shearer and Sutton partnership, wouldn't it?
And Ipswich were in the Premier League.
Yeah. Did they get relegated that year?
Yeah, they had the longest winless run of that season with 13 games.
Wow.
And crazy, isn't it? Here's another on the stat on that first Premier League season. Highest attendance was 44,000 for a Merseyside derby, and the lowest was 3,000 for Wimbledon versus Everton.
Yeah. Love to know.
Can you imagine a Premiership game now with only 3,000 people?
That'd have been the old Plough Lane, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Before
that's a great crazy.
Yeah, Milton Keynes, wasn't it? Whenever
Yeah.
it was. And there's a great story about that Wimbledon, though, that they lost their ground, and then they, after how many years, they managed to finally buy back the same patch of land and have rebuilt the stadium where it was before, or at least around the corner. It's pretty close, isn't it? I think.
AFC Wimbledon, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they got a bit of a. It's one of them clubs that they got a bit of a cult following, haven't they? I think it's one. You get like those people that do like away day tourists, they call them, don't they? They just go to different away games. I think they get a lot of those. It's a bit probably like Salford as well.
Well, it was good to have a bit of a chat about Norwich there. We were going to talk. So the main topic of conversation for this episode, we'd decided we were going to do a decent chat around FFP, because we kind of discussed this a few months back and probably didn't give it enough time. I mean, you can. There's so much stuff you can talk about this. I mean, some of the websites are frankly intimidating, and if you don't have an accountancy degree, you probably won't understand half of the things that are on there. It is complicated. None of us are accountants, so probably bear with us. We'll sort of navigate our way through this. So this all came up in light of the sort of the recent charges that were brought again against Everton for seemingly the same thing that they were charged for before, and also Nottingham Forest. Now, obviously, Everton have already had 10 points deducted for falling foul of this back in November last year, wasn't it, Tris? I think.
Yeah.
So before we get to what I thought we might do is just talk about FFP. What actually is FFP? Because I feel like it's banded around. We talk about FFP. We talk about the profit and sustainability rules. Now, are they the same thing, or are they different things?
They are actually very different things. So, financial fair play is all about obviously signings and how much people spend on bringing in new players, that kind of thing. Profit and sustainability is about kind of everything, and that's kind of where Everton have kind of fallen a little bit foul of that. So if you look at Nottingham Forest and Everton, they have both been charged with breaches of the profit and sustainability rules, which are probably a little bit different to financial fair play, which is where you look at Chelsea, you look at Man City, their breaches, or potential breaches, shall we say, potential, because Chelsea haven't been charged with anything yet. Man City have 115 charges of those. FFP and P&S are actually two very different things. P&S encompassing everything, FFP being just about the signing of and guest sales of players, really.
Right. Okay.
I don't know whether you watched that. Did you watch the Newcastle documentary about? There's one particular episode where they poached the marketing guy from Arsenal. And basically, the idea was they need to maximise the money they make, so they can make some big signings. Basically, because obviously they can only spend what you can make. And so what he noticed was, he said Arsenal had they had a team of 100 people, and it was like a full wing of an office, whereas in Newcastle it was seemingly like two blokes and a typewriter doing their marketing. And so so they could maximise the amount of profit they made, they were looking for big sponsors and also to start selling Newcastle around the world, so they become like a big super club, like your Man U, your Liverpools around the world. I think that was all related to that, probably the profitability stuff. It's quite interesting where it goes.
And that is tricky to do, isn't it? Because City have had a lot of success for well over a decade now, but I don't know how far their brand reach is in terms of, do they have, because obviously United have got huge presence in Southeast Asia, haven't they? And globally. Yeah. And so did Liverpool, obviously, because of all the success from the 80s, I guess, and I guess recent success as well. But is that the same for City? And I guess it isn't the same for Newcastle, although
I mean, I've been about a bit. I was in South Africa this year, and went to Egypt sort of fairly recently. The clubs it's all Liverpool or Man U. In Egypt, it was all Liverpool because of Mo Salah. Like, you even see funny things like a Man U shirt with Salah on the back, which is it's a sort of hilarious thing that you see.
That's not ironic.
No. But yeah, it's they're the clubs that people know. I don't think when I was in Egypt or South Africa, I don't think I saw a Man City or a Newcastle shirt. You see Man U shirts, you see Liverpool shirts, but yeah.
I think I saw a graphic not so long ago that was about sort of almost club wealth linked to kind of marketing revenue, things around the world, and City were gradually going up and up and up, which you should expect, because as soon as you're a club who wins things, you're going to get more televised games abroad. You're going to get more people buying a shirt of a team that wins stuff, aren't you? Particularly when you become European champions. So I think it will just happen. So hence the reason, there'll be fewer and fewer Man United kits sold, which is never a bad thing.
If they carry on the way they're going, it's definitely going to be the case, isn't it? I think. So go. Let's take these one at a time. Then let's go back to Everton, and obviously you were charged back in and found guilty back in November of breaching the profit and sustainability rules, and that was all to do with it was some partly to do with the sponsorship deals of the stadium falling through, wasn't it? I think, and there was something else.
Yeah, I think the whole thing, it was 19.4 million that we were found guilty of. It was all to do with the profit and sustainability rules around the funding and the interest from loans for the new stadium. Now, pretty much most football fans will have probably seen the hostility towards the Premier League from many Evertonians and also many other football fans as well. So we've got a lot of backing from a lot of football fans. A lot of that comes around for the fact that the charge we were charged with was that 19.4 million overspend over those 3-4 years that we're allowed to overspend on. But that overspend actually came from funding on infrastructure to the new stadium, which initially the Premier League said was fine to be absorbed into your normal costs. That wouldn't be akin to your profit and sustainability rules. It was something that was going to be attributed outside of that. Like much of the Premier League, they don't have much structure in the rules that they actually follow. So they changed their rules, they changed their agenda partway through a season, which meant, unfortunately, because we'd already attributed that amount to the infrastructure of building a brand new stadium, which I think any football fan can understand that's a massive, massive cost. Because we'd already attributed that to it, that changed by the Premier League midway through a season and midway through a period that they were actually adjudging for financial fair play, meant that we actually had a 19.4 million overspend. And let's be honest, 19.4 million, a lot of money to me and you. In terms of Premier League spending, that is not a lot at all. That is, it's a drop in the ocean for most of them. So they charged us with being in breach of profit and sustainability rules because of that 19.4 million overspend, which was actually about loans and loan interest on things that were previously pushed aside, wasn't included. The Premier League, is it Richard Masters? I know his surname, but they changed the rules partway through, meaning we were charged with that. We got a 10-point deduction, which a lot of fans, not just Everton fans, should I add, a lot of fans feel that was it was a bit harsh for the breach that we were actually charged with. Now, I know we're going to come on to this shortly as well. That 4-year period, three years of which we were sanctioned for, so the 1920, 2021, 21-22, 22-23 season, we got that 10-point deduction for no on-field advantage, yet we still got an on-field sanction. Parliament have just requested that all of those minutes from that meeting, that whole hearing, be released. The reason for a lot of the hostility towards the Premier League, and I'm sure you've all seen it, the little flyers that we all hold up as Everton fans saying Premier League corrupt and all that, comes because they changed the rules halfway through. They genuinely don't seem to have a clue what the hell they're doing. Now, we have also now been charged with, or at least alleged to be charged with, a second charge of profit and sustainability rules, along with Nottingham Forest. 3 of those years that we have been charged for, we've already been sanctioned for. Now, EFL, so the Football League, Championship, League 1, 2, 3, etc., they have rules in place that say you cannot be sanctioned a second time for something you've already been sanctioned for. The Premier League don't have that. They have absolutely zero rules on that, which means they are trying now to charge Everton with a second charge for the same period they've always been sanctioned for, already been sanctioned for that 10-point deduction. Hopefully, we'll get some of that back through appeal, which is currently being heard as we speak. I think we're not due to actually hear the results of that until mid-February, maybe end of February. But if they continue down the same route that they are currently doing, that means that Everton can actually be charged in the 3 consecutive years for something they've already been sanctioned for. Now, if we look at Nottingham Forest, who have also been linked in with this most recent charge, that whole same period of time, for 2 of those years, Nottingham Forest were in the Championship.
Yeah.
Their profit and sustainability rules are very different from the Premier League. So their amounts that they could actually lose is pretty much half for 2 of those years. So they're now being charged by the Premier League for coming up to the Premier League. Happy for them. Great thing for any club to be promoted to the Premier League. They then invested very heavily in that first year, which we all know they spent a hell of a lot of money to try and hope that they would actually stay in the Premier League. But because of that, they're now in breach of profit and sustainability rules, because 2 of those years, their profit and sustainability was half of what it would have been had they been in the Premier League. So again, completely unfair. No rules from the Premier League at all on that. So I kind of feel really sorry for Nottingham Forest in that. I mean, I don't know what you guys think, but from my perspective, as an Everton fan, and maybe I'm a little bit biased, probably a lot biased, there's a lot of unfairness, not just to Everton, but also Nottingham Forest, when you consider that Chelsea, who have spent a lot of money, and Manchester City rather, they have 115 charges for FFP pending, but now the Premier League have decided that everything has to be dealt with in season, yet Manchester City isn't going to be heard till the autumn, despite the fact the charges were brought against them 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, it's confusing, isn't it? I bet. I mean, I find it really hard to. Yeah, go on, Ed. Do you want to?
I wasn't going to say anything about there. Go, yeah. I think there has to be separation between them, but it does appear that, and I think a few of the things that I've kind of seen suggest that the Premier League wants to be seen to be robust in terms of financial management because of what's happened, but they've not quite fully got the policy right in place. It's a bit like, well, actually, we're going to have some agreed rules here, and the agreed rules look okay at face value, but when they're actually put up against the test of, we try to apply them against clubs, it would seem that now they're starting to unravel, as Tris has just kind of argued a little bit. And it's a bit like, well, actually, in any other sort of set of circumstances, you would pause the any prosecution or the imposition of those rules once you realise there were holes in them. And I think that's the danger for the Premier League at the moment, is they're clearly looking at everybody, as they should, because that's what their rules say, but it'll pretty much start to unravel. However, I think Chelsea probably comes under the similar guise, but I think the Man City thing is quite distinctly different as well. So I think, and I agree. I think for a club like Nottingham Forest, it seems extremely harsh to be looking at them when they were under a different league with different rules. And clubs are going to start to ask themselves, well, where exactly are the boundaries, particularly if you're a club such as Forest, or, James mentioned it earlier, or, what happens if a team like a Norwich get promoted or everything else? You're going to be left going, hang on, which rules apply to us now and don't? So anyone coming in and out of that championship are really going to be left sort of scratching their heads. So I think they probably really need to get something watertight in terms of their... And then at the same time, you've got to look at what the Premier League puts in by way of sanctions that then can people go to the court of law of the land to appeal. And you can talk to very, very different things, because then your legal test is very different to your Premier League test. So I do feel like there's, they need to get it a little bit more the ducks in a row, so to speak, before they kind of really start sort of throwing their weight around.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you look at the Premier League have charged Everton for a second time for a period they've already been sanctioned for.
Is it the same period, though? Or is it? Are we talking about? They charge you for the which 3-year period did they charge you for already?
Yes, so they've actually charged us for the 2019-20, the 2021-2022 period already. So that's where the 10-point sanction came from. Which hopefully on appeal, we will get some points back, because it was very disproportionate to the actual offence. So now...
because you are still appealing this.
We are, it's the actual appeal is actually going through now. Now, they say it is a standalone, independent body. It's the same board that actually gave us a sanction in the first place. Which, again, a bit ridiculous. It should be completely independent. But we're now looking at another sanction, another 10 points, potentially, if they agree the same thing, for the same thing we've already been sanctioned for before the appeal has actually been heard, which is what Everton's argument was in their statement, which, kind of advised the fact that no kind of shuts about it. It kind of intimated the Premier League were wrong in what they were trying to achieve. Yeah. Nottingham Forest went down a different route. Comply with the Premier League, we are sure that there's going to be a speedy and a good resolution at the end of it. But the fact that I guess the government were actually looking to kind of say the Premier League is not regulating itself correctly, so we're going to look at this. Then all of a sudden, along comes these charges for Everton, an easy target, given that they changed the rules, they changed the goalposts midway through the season. And now, the January transfer window, if you look at how much was spent and who actually spent, it was probably such a bleak transfer window for most clubs, because they were all so petrified of spending anything at all, because they were so fearful of another 10-point deduction being handed to them, when nobody actually knows what the hell is going to happen, because this whole thing with Everton is still going through the courts. It's still being challenged. Yet at the same time, the Premier League are bringing additional, sort of charges against that. It's a very strange situation that I'm not sure a lot of people are fully aware of. It's really strange.
It's what I find weird is that the rules were agreed on, I think, in 2009. They came into force in 2011, and then it was this year was the first. Well, I know that City got sanctioned, but that was by UEFA, wasn't it? That wasn't by the Premier League.
That's right.
And they got cleared of that sanction anyway. But why so why suddenly now? It's so weird, isn't it? Like it's almost like this, which presumably is why they've got themselves in the problem they have now. They've now gone back and looked at all of these records from years gone by and have realised that City have actually broken the rule, or they believe that City have broken the rules, however many times it is, 115. And I mean, the difference there is that Everton were open and transparent about what had happened with the stadium, and obviously were fully complied with the investigation, whereas City have impeded it from the get-go, basically, and will be fighting it probably. I mean, I think they're saying they're expecting a ruling in 2025, but there could be legal challenges that mean that is even longer. And this is part of the problem, isn't it? You end up with a legal battle, and in the meantime, the teams can just do whatever they want and keep fighting it.
Yeah, I mean, the Premier League have committed to the fact that the City sort of charges will be looked into and investigated, and a hearing be heard in autumn of this year. The problem with that is that, yes, they may have a hearing, but the results of that probably won't come to fruition until probably early 2025. There's a lot of people, a lot of football fans feeling very much that things aren't as transparent as they actually should be. So if we're looking at, Everton, Nottingham Forest, even Chelsea, let's look at them. They're mid-table for the second year running. For all their spending, has there been an on-field advantage? Now, that was ruled not the case for Everton, not the case for Nottingham Forest as well. Yet, Everton have been sanctioned 10 points. So something that gained no on-field advantage has actually been sanctioned with an on-field advantage. Now, if that hadn't happened to Everton, we'd be sitting 11th right now, well away from the relegation zone. And yes, I'm an Everton fan. I'm a bit passionate about it. But being honest about it, if they'd have been fair, probably they shouldn't have rushed everything forward, because they're not rushing Manchester City's forward at all. And I think that is the main bugbear for many football fans. The fact that Everton have been sanctioned within a season. We're now looking at a second charge within a season. Manchester City still have had no review. Nothing's been looked into with regards to them officially. We're not going to hear that until decision is going to come 2025. By that time, Everton could have been sanctioned twice for the same crime that they've been found guilty of, which is in dispute. And as an Everton fan, yes, they moved the goalposts. If they move the goalposts, yes, we're in breach of what those new goalposts say that they actually are. And I don't think any Everton fan is ever going to deny that. If we're in breach of profit and sustainability rules, we're in breach of them. Give us a fair sanction. That's fair. But 10 points is, that potentially relegates us if we can't drag ourselves out of it. And right now, that 10-point sanction has dragged us into the relegation points. We are, yes, we're quite close. It's it's condensed down there. It's anybody's game. As things go through the season, we might well claw our way out of that, and I think potentially we will. But those 10 points, as it stands right now, have us third bottom. We could potentially face in this season a further sanction, which many people feel will be after the final season positions have actually been revealed. So you can kind of see why many Everton fans and a lot of football fans are not really happy with it. There's no continuity, there's no consistency with it. It's a little bit like VAR. And the fact that the Parliament, the government, the Parliament now have actually requested all of the minutes and all of the dialogue from that hearing to actually be released shows that there's some bigger people looking at this and saying this is not right. It's not fair. And I think Nottingham Forest fall into that. Chelsea, not so sure. They spent a lot of money. They found a loophole. They've managed to wheedle the way around it. And as I understand it, if they don't manage to get 100 million from player sales within, up until June, they are also going to be found in breach of that.
Well, that's complicated as well, because I was
very complicated. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So this is where the Forest situation kind of collides with the Chelsea situation. So you're right. Chelsea have they're about 100 million away from breaking even in terms of FFP and profit and sustainability. So they're going to need to sell roughly about 100 million pounds worth of players, and they have to do that before the 30th of June, because that's when the Premier League set their accountancy period to finish. Now, last year, they had this similar problem. I don't know if it was 100 million last year, but they had to make some player sales and they had to make them quickly. They got around that by selling a load of players to Saudi for probably inflated prices, although how you prove that, I don't know. They're not going to be able to do that this year, because my understanding is that most of the Saudi clubs have reached their quota for foreign players. So the only way they can actually buy more is to get rid of some of the ones they've got, and the ones that they've got are on ludicrous contracts. So unless you're going to have like a Jordan Henderson type situation, they're not going to be able to offload these players. So Saudi are unlikely to be the same force that they were last season in terms of buying players. The other thing is that the Forest, so Nottingham Forest, a lot of the argument that they have with this hinges on the transfer of one particular player, and it's Brendan Johnson, I think, who last year so you were right in saying that I think their limit was something like 60 million or something in terms of profit and sustainability. And they sold Brendan Johnson, I think, to Spurs for 47.5 million, but they sold him in September, which is obviously after the deadline day, after the 30th of June. They had offers before the 30th of June for around about 30 million, I think, from Brentford or someone, and they didn't accept it. They held out, presumably because they were working on a bigger offer from a bigger club that they knew was going to come in. But they didn't do it. They didn't do it before the accountancy deadline. And their argument is that they told the Premier League about this, and that the Premier League turned around to them and said, it's okay. So I kind of feel like however they rule on Forest in this situation will determine how Chelsea behave in the next sort of 4 or 5 months. Because if Forest get away with it, then Chelsea will just be able to we can just tell the Premier League that we're planning on selling these players. But by the way, we haven't done it by the deadline that you set. So they might end up having longer. I don't know. But that's going to be the problem, I think. That's what's interesting me about the Forest situation, and particularly the Chelsea one, because I think Chelsea, they're just every year they seem to be getting more and more financially in the mud, because they're not getting the revenue from European football anymore. The 8-year contracts they gave, which seemed like a great idea at the time, and now starting to bite, I think, because they can't. It's not as easy for them to get rid of these players.
But I think the 8-year contracts, Shepp, the 8-year contracts were part of their reasoning for saying that they are compliant.
Yes,
because this strange term that I've just had, because I will not stick in my head, the concept of amortization, comes into play, which is basically like we all do when we buy a car or something else. We spread the cost, don't we? We can't afford to pay it all at once, so we spread the cost, and that's what amortization. But they claim, therefore, that when they buy like Caicedo for 105 million or whatever it is, what they're actually doing is they are paying that in equal chunks to the club that they bought him from over the 8 years of his contract. So they would declare, therefore, that in that financial year, they've only actually spent whatever that is, 15 million that year, not 105. Now, that's where there is some sort of where they're contesting in terms of the Premier League rules about, Chelsea say, well, no, we've only spent that. Because it's like we're paying in installments, but they're saying, well, actually, no, you should look at it as a whole. So I think that throws into question as well the actual figures.
Is there a wider discussion that needs to be had as well about? So we talked about, Tris mentioned that Everton were 19 or whatever it was, only 19.5 million over in breach of the rule. But the profit and sustainability rule does have quite a bit of give in it already, doesn't it? Isn't it something like it allows you to be over by about 105 million, I think, in terms of losses. So actually, Everton's losses are more like 125 for that. So my point is, I'm not pointing the finger at Everton, but we're talking in terms of small-ish numbers, but actually the bigger picture is that the league is pushing itself really far into the I can't remember which way around it is, black or red, to try and compete. And that is a massive problem because these clubs, we put the title, we'll have the clubs fall foul of this, and I can see it happening.
They allowed some leniency with COVID as well.
But fundamentally, you have a system, as you say, based on when large, particularly foreign investment started to come into the Premier League, it was seen as being vital for kind of pushing the game forward and signing, foreign players and so on and so forth. But I think part of these rules were introduced to say that actually, we need to make sure that it doesn't go so crazy. But, in setting that rule, to still set a rule that actually going, well, everyone can lose £100 million each year, and that's seen as sustainable, in any other walk of life. Let's be honest, if we all said, actually, well, we were going to, we run a sustainable household, me and my family, we lose £10,000 every year, but that's fine. That's sustainable, And when you look at it in that sense, it does seem to be kind of where any other business. And very interesting. I kind of picked up on this about, obviously, I'd kind of forgotten that Alan Sugar was owned Spurs for a while. But the reason he left football was because he said, football, I run businesses, and I run businesses to be in the black. Whereas you can only run a business in football and exist in the red. And he goes, and that's not something I can deal with. But it just kind of highlights with someone with his business brain says, any other walk of life in business, this wouldn't work.
It's quite I've lower down the leagues. I mean, it must be really scary doing the books for like a football club. It must be straight, when they're at the level where they're paying players that actually, they're getting 600 people through the gate a week or whatever. It must be. I watched that. I watched a bit of it's where Peter Crouch started playing down in London. Forgot the name of the place. But they were saying that if they get if they won promotion to the league above, they then couldn't sell beer in front of the pitch. So actually, the chairman was like, "We make all our money from beer. So actually, do we want to get promoted because we won't be able to sell beer?" Well, not on the pitch side like they were. It's just football.
That's a more important debate that needs to happen. Should beer be sold on the terraces again?
But dare I mention it? That why this is constant repeated talk of something like a Super League is because it becomes a closed shop, a bit like North American sport is. It's franchised, but to some extent, it's all about profitability. But it actually probably becomes more sustainable for that reason, because everyone's in a closed system where the money is fairly closed off. I mean, what that would do to your kind of your domestic leagues, I suppose, is a different question. But it does suggest it's like, well, actually, you're basing it on a system that someone will always have to underwrite that loss every year, and therefore you can only have clubs will only be successful if they have the financial backers, and therefore the financial backers with the biggest pots of money will still be the ones who will be the best, probably the best performing clubs.
Well, I guess we'll see, won't we? It is eye-watering though when you look at the figures. I mean, even the Forest ones are like, I think they've brought 42 players in the last 3 years. Because it's I don't even know how big a normal football squad is. What, 20 maybe? That's like over double, replacing everyone twice basically. So it's not surprising that they've fallen foul, but Tris is right. The Premier League need to be open and honest, transparent, and really clear about what the rules are. And they can't go around. I mean, I feel really sorry for Forest if they genuinely thought they had advice that what they were doing was fine, and then they've been turned around and said actually it wasn't fine, and you're going to get it. Because if Forest get a 10-point deduction, they're done. It's not like Everton, is it? Like where you think they will grind out another 10 points and possibly get back in the fight. Although, to be honest, if Everton get another 10-point deduction, I think they will be done as well. But I can't see Forest doing that. They're already really close at the moment. So I feel like any points deduction is going to potentially condemn them. But equally, I mean, I don't know what you think about the sanctions, and for something where they're essentially looking at the books on a 3-year rolling basis with a cut-off of the 30th of June, is it right that they're doing these sanctions mid-season? I mean, for me, I feel like they should be deciding before the season starts, look back at the last, we've gone back 4 years, looked at 3 years after that, you failed it, therefore you're getting a 10-point deduction at the start, and then you know exactly where you stand, and you don't have that situation where it's just hanging over the head of clubs, that they might not be in the league because they might be due a 10-point deduction. I don't know. I mean, it's just a thought. I don't know what you guys think about that.
I mean, I think one of the big things is the Premier League does not have any rules for where a team has already been sanctioned for a period, they can't be sanctioned again. Now, the EFL, they do. They have very strict rules about that if a team has been sanctioned for a period of time, they can't be sanctioned a second time. The Premier League, they don't have that. So effectively, if you look at Everton, for example, and you look at Forest as another example, and I said it a little bit earlier, that they're looking at that 4-year, that 3-year, 4-year rolling period. If you are in breach of that for the last 3 years, when it comes to next year, you're still in breach of that. And for the year after, you're still in breach of that. But they have no rules that say you can't be sanctioned more than once for that period of time. So you're looking at Forest and Everton and Man City and Chelsea, if they're found guilty of it as well, later down the line, that they can be sanctioned again for the same period. And that ultimately is Everton's argument at the moment, is the fact that they've already been sanctioned for 3 years of that 4-year period. Yet we're now looking at another charge for that same period we've already been sanctioned for. So we may get another points deduction this year. If that happens, we're going to get another points deduction next year and the year after. It's clear. And that's where the Premier League is not clear. It's not accurate in the way that it kind of manages its rules, the way that it kind of oversees itself. And that's why Parliament's getting involved. And that's why so many people, myself included, are seeing the Premier League right now as it's seemingly a little bit corrupt. They can't manage themselves. And that's the big problem. What it is at the moment is government were looking at the Premier League and saying, okay, you need better governance over your league. And they've gone, right, okay, so let's sanction these clubs. We're going to prove that we can govern our league in a way that means we won't have regulators come in and do it for us. And that's exactly what it is. And it's not consistent. You only have to look at the whole VAR thing, and that's a whole other debate. The referee and the VAR stuff, that's a whole other debate for probably another podcast. But the Premier League at the moment has absolutely zero consistency over its rules in the game, actually on the pitch, and off it either. It's just, there's no consistency whatsoever. And I think that's the problem. And what you're seeing is people like Masters, who is in charge of that, who I really hope will be shown the door, because he's failed in every element to, let's be honest, the Premier League is probably one of the greatest leagues in the world. Not just financially for the gifted talent we've got in it, but it's a great league. The Premier League is something that is watched worldwide. Yet the actual governing body for the Premier League can't see their arse from the head. It's just not lining up at the moment. And I think something needs to happen to change that whole mentality. That means that everybody, not just the teams at the top, not just your Manchester Cities, your Liverpools, your Arsenals, your Man Uniteds, it's not just protecting them, but it's protecting the league as a whole. There are teams like Nottingham Forest who came up and gave it a damn good go, managed to survive a season because they managed to sign players. You look at Luton right now. They came up last year. Probably none of us here, and I know from previous podcasts, we all thought they were going to be down and out this season. They are giving it a damn good go. They've made some very, adapt signings, not massive financial signings, but they're giving it a damn good go. The Premier League is so competitive for that reason, and I think it needs to be protected a hell of a lot better than the governing body currently are actually doing. They're not doing a good enough job for me.
I think ultimately you've given the reason as well why, as much as people want this to happen, because I think that this, whether that be jealousy, resentment, or whatever way you want to look at it, it's ultimately why I don't think the charges will stick with Manchester City. It's very similar to what UEFA tried to bring with Manchester City a few years ago. The root and branch, basically fraud that they're saying, and that's what it is with Manchester City. They're saying things like sponsor contracts were said to be one amount on one paper, but actually have been said to be more. You could go on and we'd all be, bored to tears with it. But ultimately, they were saying that actually in a court where you're looking at litigation and you're looking at financial fraud, the amount of things that need to add up for that to be proven would be nigh on impossible in the highest court of the land, but actually to be proven by a couple of former chairmen of clubs and the Premier League's governance structure, just it won't stick. And even if they say that they think they basically will call it out with lawyers and it won't go anywhere, as it didn't when UEFA tried to bring it to them, and then they got the European Court of Law to look at it and go, this is just nonsense. Not that it's nonsense or it's not got a basis, but actually you've no way of proving it. And I think ultimately that's why they keep putting Man City off and off to this date to be decided. I think there's probably a bit of a public will to some extent that wants to see something happen, because obviously everyone knows they've had so much money thrown at them and spent at them, and it's brought them success. But ultimately they probably won't. Whereas you can probably look at a team like Everton or the Nottingham Forest thing and go, well, actually, looking at our cobbled together rules, we think we can get something to stick there. So let's go for a quick and easy win and let's make it stick. And, that doesn't bring natural justice in any way. But I suspect the Man City will rumble on. Yeah. Now,
for those who don't have a
corrupt or just not corrupt or just not competent.
For those listening, audio, Tris keeps putting off a banner saying PL corrupt. So
I think I've got to take umbrage with that, in the fact that you put that on the banner as a statement of fact. Yet earlier on, when James Edwards was giving his appeal for being IRO, you put future IRO ? I mean, I think it's a shoe-in. We should have just put it as a definitive. If you're definitively going to say the Premier League is corrupt,
get it on
we
there.
should declare it now. James Edwards will be IRO of RTBI.
So that's what we've established today. We've established that City are going to get away with it. Everton are probably going to get charged again. Forest are done for, and James is going to be IRO.
Yeah,
it's a good evening's work.
I feel like I've got an easy target, easy crowd though, because you're on an Area 9. So if you didn't vote for that,
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, turn off outside with.
And let it be said on a public broadcast, he does not take bribes. He has in no way bribed us financially at all in any way.
No, it's like we're not going to say what PL stands for in Tris's banner either, just to keep us out of trouble. Paul Lambert, there we go. He's corrupt.
Actually, no, in the Premier League, they'd probably go for us because we'd be an easy target. Yeah.
Yeah.
All rights removed from YouTube. Yeah.
I think YouTube might do that themselves, to be fair. Anyway, that was a good conversation. Let's move on to the final part then. So as with other guests that have come on here, and both presenters now, everyone has to do the quiz, and you get your name on the board, And now we know that you'll never get a worse score than me, so it's not a problem. So after months of abusing Ian Richardson for getting, what did he get? Did he get 1 or 2 or something? I can't remember. It was a seemingly impossibly low score, and then
Important thing is it was more than you.
Yeah, it was one. It was more than me. Yeah. So there's no pressure here, but you will go on the leaderboard. And at some point, we will actually pull our finger out and actually produce a said leaderboard so we can flag it up on the screen. But I've got the questions prepared, he says. I'm just bringing up my... Tris, can you do the timing again?
I can indeed.
See, look, I get mine from a nice, happy website that's just nice, simple questions. Tris gets his questions from like the back of some catalogue of horrendous footballing questions. Right, I'm ready when
It wasn't
you are.
that bad.
Well, I'm
We'll
biased.
rerun them at the end of the season.
No, it's fine. It's fine. You can't get a minus score, can you? So maybe we should rerun it unless
It's James. There's always that chance.
Right. Are you ready, James?
Yeah, go for it.
Tris, are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, right.
James, ready?
Bloody hell.
Let's go.
Absolutely.
Right.
Go.
Question 1. So Norwich City famously play in yellow and green, but what colours did the team sport in their shirts when they were formed in 1902?
Blue and white.
Very good. What is the team's nickname?
Canaries.
Very good. What year were the club formed?
1902.
Very good. Norwich City's nickname is the Canaries. Why was this name first linked to the club?
There's a couple of schools of thought. There used to be a lot of canary breeders in Norfolk, and I think there's a Dutch connection as well.
That's good. That's good enough. Your first answer is good enough. I haven't got the Dutch one on here, but that's. Where did the club first play their home games?
Very first, it was Newmarket Road. It was the Nest, I think, was the first proper stadium.
No, very good, Newmarket Road. What name is given to the Player of the Year trophy, which is voted for by the fans and presented at the end of each season?
Barry something. Oh, I've forgotten the name of it. I was going to say Barry Humphries, but that's time it. I can't remember. Barry. I can't remember.
Do you want to pass?
Yeah.
Right. In 1958-59, how far did they progress in the FA Cup, beating Manchester United and Spurs?
Got to the semis, I think.
Very good. Who was the club's first manager in their history?
And there is time.
I'll let you answer.
Someone Roberts. Is it Roberts?
No. It was John Bowman.
Okay.
And your memorial trophy was the Barry Butler Memorial
Barry
Trophy.
Butler.
Is he an ex-player?
Or a chairman, I can't remember.
Okay.
Yeah, can't remember.
Well, that was very respectable, James. I didn't actually tally it up as I go, so I'm going to have to go back and tally it up.
6, I think you got.
Just 6.
6, I think, yeah.
6.
I'm just going to in.
6.
I'm just going to in. Have you got 6 as well, Tris?
6.
6. Is that a winner? No. Did Matt Jakeman get 7? No. We need to get the board made. This is why
we do need a board.
I think he might be second, a joint second. I think I got 5 or 6. I can't remember, but I think Matt was leading with 7. I think.
So
Either way, not a bad effort.
Not a bad effort at all.
Excellent.
And,
Shepp, I have to commend you as a quiz master that you could have been really evil. However, within the first 3 questions, his third question, you'd already given him the answer to it, even if he didn't know it in question 1.
Yeah, I did. I knew the answer anyway, but I did think that.
Oh yeah, I had actually, and I didn't even clock that.
I don't think you're not going to be threatening the mastermind quizmaster anytime soon, Sheppy.
This is that's what you get for coming on. You don't get a professional quiz. You get our quiz, and it's fair. It's fair. Everyone gets the same treatment. That's the most important thing.
Unless it's you.
unless it's me who gets horrendous treatment. But that's fine. That's not a problem. Right. Well, that brings us to the end then. Just to say, thank you very much, everyone, for listening and staying with us to the end. And thank you very much, James, for agreeing to be a guest. And thank you, Ed, for agreeing to be a guest again and coming back. You weren't put off the first time, so that's good. And thank you, Tris. And we will be doing another episode. We're recording another episode. I think at the end of this month or beginning early March as well. So and that one will be on. I think we've got a guest coming to speak about Leeds, dirty Leeds, boo, and also another guest coming on to talk about Leicester. So we're going to focus a bit on the Championship, although we have talked about that a bit with the Norwich chat today. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See you later.
Cheers.